A while, withdrawn in secret fields of thought, her mind moved in a many-imaged past that lived again and saw its end approach. Dying, it lived imperishably in her, transient and vanishing from transient eyes, invisible, a fateful ghost of self. It bore the future on its phantom breast. Along the fleeting events' far backwards trail, regressed the stream of the insistent hours, and on the bank of the mysterious flood, peopled with well-loved forms now seen no more, and the subtle images of things that were, her witness spirit stood reviewing time. All that she once had hoped and dreamed had been, flew past her eagle-winged through memory's skies. As in a many-hued, flaming inner dawn, her life's broad highways and its sweet bypaths lay mapped to her sun-clear recording view. From the bright country of her childhood days, and the blue mountains of her soaring youth, and to the paradise grooves and peacock wings of love. To joy clutched under the silent shadow of doom, in a last turn where heaven raced with hell. 12 passionate months led in a day of fate. An absolute supernatural darkness falls on a man sometimes when he draws near to God. An hour comes when fail all nature's means, forced out from the protecting ignorance and flung back on his naked primal need. He at length must cast from him his surface soul and be the ungarbed entity within. That hour had fallen now on Savitri. A point she had reached where life must be in vain, or, in her unborn element awake, her will must cancel her body's destiny. For only the unborn spirit's timeless power can lift the yoke imposed by birth and time. Only the self that builds this figure of self can raise the fixed, interminable line that joins these changing names, these numberless lives, these new oblivious personalities, and keeps still lurking in our conscious acts and the trail of old forgotten thoughts and deeds. Disown the legacy of our buried selves, the burdensome heirship to our vanished forms, accepted blindly by the body and the soul. In an episode in an unremembered tale, its beginning lost, its motive and plot concealed, a once living story has prepared and made our present fate, child of past energies. The fixity of the cosmic sequences, fastened with hidden inevitable links. She must disrupt, dislodge by her soul's force, her past, a block on the immortal's road, make a raised ground and shape anew her fate. A colloquy of the original gods, meeting upon the borders of the unknown. Her soul's debate with embodied nothingness must be wrestled out on a dangerous, dim background. Her being must confront its formless cause against the universe weigh its single self. On the bare peak where self is alone with naught, and life has no sense and love no place to stand, she must plead her case upon extinction's verge. And in the world's death cave uphold life's helpless claim, and vindicate her right to be and love. Altered must be nature's harsh economy. Acquittance she must win from her past's bond, an old account of suffering exhaust. Strike out from time the soul's long compound debt, and the heavy servitudes of the karmic gods, the slow revenge of unforgiving law, and the deep need of universal pain and hard sacrifice and tragic consequence. Out of a timeless barrier she must break, penetrate with her thinking depths the void's monstrous hush, look into the lonely eyes of immortal death, and with her nude spirit measure the infinite's night, The great and dolorous moment now was close. A mailed battalion marching to its doom. The last long days went by with a heavy tramp, long but too soon to pass, too near the end. Alone amid the many faces loved, aware among unknowing happy hearts. Her armored spirit kept watch upon the hours, listening for a foreseen tremendous step in the beauty of the inhuman wilds. A combatant in a silent, dreadful lists, the world unknowing, for the world she stood. No helper had she save the strength within. There was no witness of the terrestrial eyes. The gods above and nature's soul below were the spectators of that mighty strife. Around her were the austere sky-pointing hills, and the green, murmurous, broad, deep-thoughted woods, muttered incessantly their muffled spell. A dense, magnificent-colored, self-wrapped life, draped in the leaves' vivid emerald monotone, and set with checkered sunbeams and blithe flowers, emerged her destiny's secluded scene. There had she grown to the stature of her spirit, the genius of titanic silences, steeping her soul in its wide loneliness, had shown to her herself's bare reality, and mated her with her environment. Its solitude greatened her human hours with a background of the eternal and the unique. A force of spare direct necessity reduced the heavy framework of man's days and his overburdening mass of outward needs to a first thin strip of simple animal wants, and the mighty wideness of the primitive earth and the brooding multitude of patient trees, and the musing sapphire leisure of the sky, and the solemn weight of slowly passing months, had left her deep room for thought and God. There was her drama's radiant prologue lived. A spot for the eternal's tread on earth, set in the cloistral yearning of the words, and watched by the aspiration of the peaks, appeared through an aureate opening in time, where stillness listening felt the unspoken word, and the hours forgot to pass towards grief and change. Here, with the suddenness divine advents have, repeating the marvel of the first descent, changing to rapture the dull earthly round, love came to her hiding the shadow, death. Well might he find her in this perfect shrine, since first the earth's being heavenward growth began, through all the long ordeal of the race. Never a rarer creature bore his shaft, that burning test of the Godhead in our parts, a lightning from the heights on our abyss. All in her pointed to a nobler kind, near to earth's wideness, intimate with heaven, exalted and swift her young, large, envisioned spirit, voyaging through worlds of splendor and of calm, overflew the ways of thought to unborn things. Ardent was her self-poised, unstumbling will, her mind a sea of white sincerity, passionate in flow, had not one turbid wave. As in a mystic and dynamic dance, a priestess of immaculate ecstasies, inspired and ruled from truth's revealing vault, moves in some prophet cavern of the gods, a heart of silence in the hands of joy, inhabited by rich creative beats, a body like a parable of dawn that seemed a niche for veiled divinity, or a golden temple door to things beyond. Immortal rhythms swayed in her time-born steps. Her look, her smile awoke celestial sense. Even in earth stuff and their intense delight, poured a supernatural beauty on men's lives. A wide self-giving was her native act, a magnanimity as of sea or sky, enveloped with its greatness all that came, and gave a sense as of a greatened world. Her kindly care was a sweet temperate sun, her high passion a blue heaven's equipoise. As might a soul fly like a hunted bird, escaping with tired wings from a world of storms, and a quiet reach like a remembered breast, in a haven of safety and splendid soft repose, one could drink life back in the streams of honey fire, recover the lost habit of happiness, feel her bright nature's glorious ambience, and preen joy in her warmth and colors rule. A deep of compassion, a hushed sanctuary, her inward help unbarred a gate in heaven. Love in her was wider than the universe. The whole world could take refuge in her single heart. The great unsatisfied Godhead here could dwell, vacant of the dwarf's self-imprisoned air. Her mood could harbor its sublimer breath, spiritual that can make all things divine. For even her gulfs were secrecies of light. At once she was the stillness and the word, a continent of self-diffusing peace, an ocean of untrembling virgin fire. The strength, the silence of the gods were hers. In her he found a vastness like his own. His high, warm, subtle ether he refound and moved in her as her natural home. In her he met his own eternity. Till then, no mournful line has barred his ray on the frail breast of this precarious earth, since her orb sight in its breath-fastened house, opening in sympathy with happier stars, where life is not exposed to sorrowful change. Remembered beauty death-claimed lids ignore, and wondered at this world of fragile forms, carried on canvas strips of shimmering time. The impunity of unborn mites was hers. Although she leaned to bear the human load, her walk kept still the measure of the gods. Earth's breast had failed to stain that brilliant glass, unsmeared with the dust of our mortal atmosphere. It still reflected heaven's spiritual joy. Almost they saw who lived within her light, her playmate in the sempiternal spheres, descended from its unattainable realms in her attracting Advent's luminous wake, the white-fired dragon bird of endless bliss, drifting with burning wings above her days. Heaven's tranquil shield guarded the mission child. A glowing orbit was her early term, years like gold raiment of the gods that pass. Her youth sat throned in calm felicity. But joy cannot endure until the end. There is a darkness in terrestrial things that will not suffer long to glad a note. On her too closed the inescapable hand. The armed immortal bore the snare of time. One dealt with her who meets the burdened great, a signer of the ordeal and the path, who chooses in this holocaust of the soul, death, fall, and sorrow as the spirit's goads. The dubious Godhead, with his torch of pain, lit up the chasm of the unfinished world, and called her to fill with her vast self the abyss. August and pitiless in his calm outlook, heightening the Eternal's dreadful strategy, he measured the difficulty with the might, and dug more deep the gulf that all must cross. Assailing her divinest elements, he made her heart kin to the striving human heart, and forced her strength to its appointed road. For this she had accepted mortal breath, to wrestle with the shadow she had come, and must confront the riddle of man's birth, and life's brief struggle in dumb matter's night. Whether to bear with ignorance and death, or hew the ways of immortality, to win or lose the godlike game for man, was her soul's issue thrown with destiny's dice. But not to submit and suffer was she born. To lead, to deliver was her glorious part. Here was no fabric of the terrestrial make, fit for a day's use by busy, careless powers, an image fluttering on the screen of fate, half animated for a passing show, or a castaway on the ocean of desire, flung to the eddies in a ruthless sport, and tossed along the gulfs of circumstance. A creature born to bend beneath the yoke, a chattel and a plaything of time's lords, or one more pawn who comes destined to be pushed, one slow move forward on a measureless board. In the chess play of the earth soul with doom, such is the human figure drawn by time. A conscious frame was here, a self-born force. In this enigma of the dusk of God, this slow and strange, uneasy compromise of limiting nature with a limited soul, where all must move between an ordered chance and an uncaring blind necessity. Too high the fire spiritual dare not blaze. If once it met the intense original flame, an answering touch might shatter all measures made, and earth sink down with the weight of the infinite. A gaol is this immense material world. Across each road stands armed a stone-eyed law, at every gate the huge dim sentinels pace. A grey tribunal of the ignorance, an inquisition of the priests of night, in judgment sit on the adventurer's soul, and at the dual tables and the karmic norm restrain the titan in us and the god. Pain with its lash, joy with its silver bribe, guard the wheel's circling immobility. A bond is put on the high climbing mind, a seal on the too large wide open heart. Death stays the journeying discoverer, life. Thus is the throne of the inconscient safe, while the tardy coilings of the eons pass, and the animal browses in the sacred fence, and the gold hawk can cross the skies no more. But one stood up and lit the limitless flame, arraigned by the dark power that hates all bliss, in the dire court where life must pay for joy. Sentenced by the mechanic justicer to the afflicting penalty of man's hopes, her head she bowed not to the stark decree, baring her helpless heart to destiny's stroke. So bows and must the mind-born will in man, obedient to the statutes fixed of old, admitting without appeal the nether gods. In her the superhuman cast its seed, inapt to fold its mighty wings of dream. Her spirit refused to hug the common soil, or, finding all life's golden meanings robbed, compound with earth, struck from the starry list, or quench with black despair the God-given light. Accustomed to the eternal and the true, her being conscious of its divine founts, asked not from mortal frailty pain's relief, patched not with failure, bargain, or compromise. A work she had to do, a work to speak, writing the unfinished story of her soul, in thoughts and actions graved in nature's book. She accepted not to close the luminous page, cancel her commerce with eternity, or set a signature of weak assent to the brute balance of the world's exchange. A force in her that toiled since earth was made, accomplishing in life the great world plan, pursuing after death immortal aims, repugned to admit frustration's barren role, forfeit the meaning of her birth in time, obey the government of the casual fact, or yield her high destiny up to passing chance. In her own self she found her high recourse. She matched with the iron law her sovereign right, her single will opposed the cosmic rule. To stay the wheels of doom this greatness rose. At the unseens knock upon the hidden gates. Her strength made greater by the lightning's touch, awoke from slumber in her heart's recess. It bore the stroke of that which kills and saves. Across the awful march no eye can see, barring its dreadful route, no will change. She faced the engines of the universe. A heart stood in the way of the driving wheels. Its giant workings paused in front of a mind. Its stark conventions met the flame of a soul. A magic leverage suddenly is caught that moves the veiled ineffable's timeless will. A prayer, a master act, a king idea can link man's strength to transcendent force. Then miracle is made the comic rule. One mighty deed can change the course of things. A lonely thought becomes omnipotent. All now seems nature's massed machinery, an endless servitude to material rule, and long determination's rigid chain, her firm and changeless habits aping law, her empire of unconscious deft device, annul the claim of man's free human will. He too is a machine amid machines. A pistol brain pumps out the shapes of thought. A beating heart cuts out emotion's modes. An insentient energy fabricates a soul. Or the figure of the world reveals the signs of a tide chance repeating her old steps in circles around matter's binding posts. A random series of inept events to which reason lends elusive sense is here, or the empiric life's instinctive search, or a vast ignorant mind's colossal work. But wisdom comes and vision grows within, then nature's instrument crowns himself her king. He feels his witnessing self and conscious power. His soul steps back and sees the light supreme. A Godhead stands behind the brute machine. This truth broke in a triumph of fire. A victory was won for God and man. The deity revealed its hidden face. The great world mother now in her arose. A living choice reversed fate's cold dead turn, affirmed the spirit's tread on circumstance, pressed back the senseless dire revolving wheel, and stopped the mute march of necessity. A flaming warrior from the eternal peaks, empowered to force the door denied and closed, smote from death's visage its dumb absolute, and burst the bounds of consciousness and time.